There is a forgotten chapter in baseball history, and it begins with a man who once conquered a number so sacred that even today it feels untouchable, a 401 batting average. Bill Terry achieved what National League hitters have spent nearly a century chasing. Yet when he passed away decades later, his name barely echoed beyond the walls of a small-town newspaper. How does a player who reached heights reserved for legends slowly fade from the memory of the sport he once ruled? How does someone who led New York to a championship become a figure time quietly overlooked? As you listen to his story, I invite you to think about something. What makes an athlete truly unforgettable? Their numbers or their journey? If this opening sparks a thought or memory of your own, feel free to share it in the comments. Bill Terry's story does not begin with a dream of stadium lights or the fantasy of becoming a hero. It begins in the humid streets of early 1900s Atlanta, where a young boy watched his family fracture and learned far too early that survival mattered more than ambition. At 15, while most kids were still discovering who they were, Terry walked away from home with nothing but his own determination. He worked on railroads and at shipping yards, lifting crates heavier than he was, shaping the strength and stubbornness that would later define his presence on the field. Baseball was never meant to be his destiny. It was simply a job that paid a bit better than the exhausting labor of the docks. That honesty, almost blunt in its simplicity, makes Terry stand apart. In a world where athletes often speak about lifelong passion, his motivation was rooted in responsibility. He needed money. He needed stability. And baseball, unexpectedly, offered both. He started as a pitcher in small southern leagues, showing promise but not brilliance. Yet every time he stepped into the batter's box, something changed. His swing was compact, confident, almost instinctive. Coaches noticed, teammates noticed, and eventually the minor league world noticed. But just as his talent began to bloom, life intervened again. Terry married young, and when his wife became pregnant, he faced a decision that would shape his identity. Chase a sport he didn't fully trust, or walk away to protect the people depending on him. He chose family. He left baseball. For a moment, his story could have ended there, as one of the countless gifted players who never make it beyond local fields. Yet destiny has a way of circling back, especially for those who don't chase it, but quietly earn it through grit. Before we move on, I'd love to know your thoughts. Have you ever stepped away from something you were good at because life forced your hand? Sharing your perspective might help others who face the same crossroads. Terry's return to baseball was not a triumphant comeback engineered by ambition. It was gradual, almost accidental. After leaving the sport to support his family, he found work in Tennessee, steady but unremarkable. Yet people around him kept noticing the way he talked about baseball, not with passion, but with a quiet certainty that he could still play if he wanted to. Eventually, Memphis of the Southern Association persuaded him to give it another try. He agreed not because he missed the game, but because the paycheck made sense. What happened next was fate disguised as routine opportunity. When the New York Giants came to Memphis for an exhibition game, manager John McGraw watched Terry take a few swings and saw something rare. Discipline without fear, contact without wasted motion. McGraw, a man who ruled his team with absolute authority, liked what he saw until he actually spoke to Terry. When the Giants expressed interest in signing him, Terry didn't express gratitude or excitement. Instead, he stated his price calmly, almost coldly. He wanted a 2-year contract worth more than what rookies normally dared to request. McGraw expected eagerness. Terry offered negotiation. That moment set the tone for a relationship built on mutual respect and constant tension. Their personalities clashed immediately. McGraw enforced strict curfews, demanded obedience, and believed players should feel privileged just to wear a Giants uniform. Terry believed in earning a living and keeping his dignity. One infamous night, he returned to the hotel 2 minutes past curfew and was fined heavily. Instead of arguing, he told the team secretary to double the fine if it meant he could go home. The next day, when McGraw sent him out to pinch hit, a test wrapped in punishment, Terry walked to the plate, tied his laces, and delivered a home run without saying a word. Moments like that defined him. Unbothered by pressure, unwilling to bow, quietly brilliant. For anyone watching, This was the beginning of a complex dynamic. Two stubborn men learning how to coexist while pushing the Giants toward a new era. And as their conflict simmered beneath every game and every decision, it shaped Terry into more than just a hitter. It shaped him into a force that New York would eventually rely on. By the late 1920s, Bill Terry was no longer just a stubborn Southern hitter fighting for his place on the roster. He had become the quiet engine of the New York Giants offense, consistent, disciplined, and impossibly difficult to strike out. Yet nothing in the decade could have prepared baseball for what he was about to do in 1930, a season that still stands as one of the most astonishing individual achievements in National League history. That year, Terry transformed into a hitting machine. His swing didn't look violent or dramatic, but every time the ball left his bat, it sounded different. Cleaner, sharper, almost inevitable. Pitchers tried working him high, low, inside, outside. Nothing worked. He didn't chase pitches. He didn't panic. He simply chose the ball he wanted and punished it. By season's end, he was batting .401. Nearly a century later, no National League player has touched that number again. The beauty of Terry's achievement lies not just in the statistic itself, but in the context surrounding it. America was falling deeper into the Great Depression. Unemployment was rising. Families were struggling to afford food, let alone baseball tickets. Yet in the middle of that darkness, Terry delivered a performance that reminded people how extraordinary human skill could be. Newspapers wrote about him with a sense of awe, describing his at-bats as if they were moments of calm cutting through national anxiety. But Terry himself remained unfazed. He didn't celebrate loudly. He didn't declare himself a legend. He didn't even speak much about the achievement. To him, it was a job well done. Nothing more, nothing less. That restraint makes the story even more powerful. It wasn't ego that guided him. It was discipline, focus, and a strange serenity that made the most difficult skill in baseball look almost simple. Fans who lived through that era often recall Terry's 1930 season as a rare memory of hope, a reminder that even in troubled times, greatness could still emerge unexpectedly. If you've ever witnessed an athlete whose performance felt almost supernatural, I'd love to know. Those memories often shape why we love sports in the first place. When John McGraw's health began to fail in 1932, the Giants faced a moment that could alter the identity of the franchise. McGraw was one of the most commanding figures baseball had ever seen, strict, fiery, and unshakably authoritative. Few men in the game could match his intensity, and even fewer could stand up to him. But among the rare exceptions was Bill Terry, the player who negotiated without fear, challenged rules when they felt unfair, and refused to be intimidated by anyone. So when McGraw stepped down and named Terry his successor, the baseball world was stunned. How could the toughest manager of the era choose the man who challenged him the most? Yet in some strange way, the decision made sense. Terry possessed the same sharp mind, the same hunger for structure, and the same expectation for excellence, just expressed with a colder calm rather than fiery rage. What followed was remarkable. In 1933, Terry's first full season as manager, the Giants not only contended, they won the World Series. And Terry wasn't just leading from the bench. He was still playing, still hitting, still anchoring the lineup with the same steady brilliance that had defined his career. Players respected him because he didn't pretend to be perfect. He didn't raise his voice, but he also didn't sugarcoat reality. He wanted smart baseball, disciplined baseball. Baseball played with the same precision that allowed him to dominate pitchers. Under his leadership, the Giants became a team that mirrored his personality: quiet, controlled, efficient, and ruthless in close games. But success didn't erase his stubbornness. Terry disliked intrusive media questions. He bristled when analysts predicted the Giants would fall behind their rivals. He carried himself with a confidence that sometimes slipped into sharpness, and one comment in particular, directed at the Brooklyn Dodgers, would soon turn into one of the most memorable moments of his career. By 1934, Terry's Giants were deep in a tight pennant race with the St. Louis Cardinals. Every game mattered, every inning could tilt the standings, and every comment from a manager carried weight. Reporters flocked to Terry for predictions, hoping to ignite a headline-worthy quote. For weeks, he brushed them off with polite, practiced answers. Until one morning, when a journalist asked a simple question about a rival team. "What do you think of the Brooklyn Dodgers this year?" Terry paused just long enough to make people lean in and replied with a cool, almost casual tone. "Brooklyn, are they still in the league?" The press room erupted. It was the kind of line that becomes unforgettable the moment it's spoken, sharp enough to sting, confident enough to amuse, and risky enough to echo far beyond the clubhouse walls. Newspapers printed it instantly. Dodgers fans took it personally. Dodgers players took it even more personally. As the season neared its final days, the Giants held a narrow lead over the Cardinals. All they needed was a strong finish. Their last two games against Brooklyn, the team Terry had just dismissed in a single sentence. Baseball has a long memory, especially when pride is involved. The Dodgers played those games like they were fighting for a championship of their own. They outperformed, out-hustled, and out-focused the Giants, winning both matchups and crushing New York's hopes. The Cardinals swept past and claimed the pennant. For Terry, the moment became a lifelong reminder that words can shape destiny. He never apologized, never explained, never rewrote the quote. But privately, those close to him said he understood the weight of what had happened. He wasn't a man who displayed regret openly, but he learned from it in silence. Sports are full of moments like this, where confidence teeters on the edge of consequence. Have you ever seen an athlete or coach say something bold that later came back to challenge them? Feel free to share. These moments often spark some of the most fascinating conversations among fans. To understand Bill Terry fully, you have to step away from the box scores and trophies and look at the man as he lived day to day. Beneath the calm exterior was someone shaped by hardship, responsibility, and an unwavering belief in doing things the right way, even when the right way was defined by the era he grew up in. He was disciplined, focused, and fiercely loyal to those he trusted. But he was also guarded, difficult to read, and sometimes resistant to change. As a manager, he demanded intelligence and precision. He valued players who thought strategically, who respected the game's fundamentals, who didn't make excuses when things went wrong. That mindset earned him respect but also created distance. He wasn't the type to joke in the dugout or build emotional bonds. Many described him as someone who kept his thoughts locked away, opening up only when absolutely necessary. Off the field, Terry carried himself with the same straightforwardness. He avoided controversy, avoided headlines, avoided becoming a spectacle. Yet his adherence to tradition also meant he sometimes viewed new ideas cautiously. In a time when conversations around integration in baseball were beginning to surface, he often referenced the logistical challenges teams faced, reflecting common concerns of the era rather than forward-thinking optimism. He wasn't hostile. He was cautious, shaped by a world that moves slower than the one we know today. This complexity makes Terry human, neither flawless nor deeply troubled, simply a product of his environment navigating a sport undergoing transformation. The contrast between his on-field excellence and his understated personality created a portrait rarely seen in modern sports. A star who didn't chase the spotlight, a leader who didn't need applause, a man whose courage came from quiet conviction rather than loud declarations. Stories like Terry's remind us that greatness often comes with layers. Some athletes shine because they court attention, others shine because they deliver when it matters, even if they leave the celebration to others. Which type do you find more compelling? The loud, charismatic icon or the quiet, steady figure who lets performance speak for itself? Your view might reveal something about how you see leadership and legacy. When Bill Terry stepped away from the Giants in 1941, he didn't linger in New York, didn't chase managerial offers, and didn't attach himself to the game as many legends do. Instead, he returned to the American South, choosing a quieter, more ordinary life that contrasted sharply with the noise of his playing years. In Jacksonville, Florida, he opened a Buick dealership, a practical business for a practical man. Customers would sometimes recognize him, surprised to see a Hall of Famer discussing car prices with the same calm precision he once used to dissect pitches. Inside his office hung a single reminder of his baseball past, his Giants uniform number 3. Not surrounded by trophies, not framed with dramatic flair, just placed with simple respect. It was as if Terry acknowledged his accomplishments without needing to relive them endlessly. Friends said he rarely talked about baseball unless someone asked, and even then, he spoke modestly, often shifting focus to teamwork rather than his own success. As the decades passed, the world of baseball evolved rapidly. New stars emerged, media coverage intensified, and the sport entered an era of storytelling far louder and more emotional than anything Terry had known. His name appeared less frequently in articles and broadcasts. Younger fans grew up not knowing the man who once hit 401, and even in New York, his legacy gently drifted into the background behind more dramatic figures. When Terry passed away in 1989, the tributes were sincere but understated. There were no massive ceremonies, no citywide memorials. His departure echoed his personality, quiet, composed, and free from spectacle. To some, it felt unfair that a player of his magnitude slipped into history so softly. To others, it felt right, as if he had always been destined to walk away without demanding attention. But legends do not disappear. They simply wait to be rediscovered. And every time fans learn about his achievements, his strength, and his humble post-baseball life, the memory of Bill Terry sharpens again. Bill Terry's journey is a reminder that greatness doesn't always come wrapped in theatrics. He wasn't loud, he wasn't dramatic, he didn't craft a public image or chase admiration. Instead, he built a career on discipline, clarity, and a deep respect for the work itself. From a boy who left home at 15 to a man who hit 401 in the midst of national hardship, Terry's story shows how extraordinary things can emerge from ordinary intentions. And yet his quiet departure from baseball, and later from life, adds a bittersweet layer to his legacy. The man who achieved what generations of hitters have failed to repeat stepped away without insisting on recognition. He didn't push his name into the spotlight. He didn't demand to be remembered. But perhaps that humility gives his story even more weight. It invites us to reflect on what truly defines a legacy. Is it the applause we receive, or the impact we leave behind even after the applause fades? This brings us back to the question posed in the opening of this video. How does someone so extraordinary slip into the background of history? Maybe because he chose it. Maybe because he believed his accomplishments spoke loudly enough without him needing to. Before we finish, I'd love to hear your perspective. Do you think athletes like Bill Terry deserve louder recognition in the modern era? Or do you see beauty in the quiet way he shaped the game? Your thoughts help keep these stories alive, and they often open up conversations we don't get anywhere else. If this video gave you something to think about, consider liking it, sharing it with someone who loves baseball history, or exploring the related videos on our channel. There are many more forgotten legends waiting to be rediscovered.